The wind never lies in the Mongolian steppe. It speaks in whispers of sand, in thunder of hooves, in the cries of men who dared to rule it. Before empires had names, before kings wore crowns, there was only the sky, vast, merciless, eternal. And beneath that sky, a child was born. His name was Temujin. No palace, no Ames, no destiny, only hunger, cooled, and the will to survive. He would grow to face betrayal, slavery, and exile. But out of those ashes, something impossible would rise. The man who would unite the tribes of the steppe. The man who would forge an empire from nothing. The man who would turn the wild wind into law. They would come to call him Genghis Khan, the oceanic ruler, chosen not by blood but by heaven itself. Imagine it, a sea of grass stretching to infinity, tens of thousands of horsemen waiting for a single command, faces masked by dust on destiny. And at their front, a lone figure, eyes lifted to the sky that had both cursed and crowned him. The sky is one, he whispers, and so must the world beneath it be. The horizon trembles. The storm is coming. History will remember kings and cities, but only one man ever ruled both the earth and the heavens. His name was Genghis Khan, and this is his legend. If stories of courage, destiny, and the unbreakable human spirit move you, ride with us. Subscribe and journey into the heart of history, where the wind still remembers the man who conquered it. Before he was Genghis Khan, he was only Temujin, a boy born among shifting sands and shifting loyalties. The year was around 1162. The Mongolian steppe was a world without borders, ruled by tribes, knit nations, and by oaths, knit laws. It was a place where survival meant alliance, and betrayal was a daily ritual. The steppe stretched wider than the imagination, a sea of grass where men rode until the horizon swallowed them. Every family carried its world in saddlebags. Every dawn was uncertain. The tribes of the plains, the Techid, the Merkits, the Tatars, the Karates, moved like ghosts across this vast expanse, waging wars that began and ended with the seasons. Temujin was born into one such clan, the Bojajin, heirs of nothing but the wind. His father, Yesujay, a respected chieftain, was poisoned by rivals when Temujin was still a child. That single act shattered his world. Stripped of power and protection, his mother, Huralun, gathered her children and led them into exile, surviving in roots, wild berries, and the flesh of their own horses. Out there, beneath the endless blue sky, a young boy learned what no school could teach. That strength was not given, but taken. That loyalty was worth more than gold. And that even the Gids of the steppe, the eternal Tengri, helped only those who refused to kneel. As Temujin grew, so did his legend. He hunted wolves to feed his brothers. He challenged the traditions that chained men to bloodlines. He saw that the steppe, for all its vastness, was imprisoned by caste, a world where tribes destroyed each other, instead of dreaming together. To him, the vision of unity was not madness, it was survival. In the distance, other empires thrived. To the west, the Crusaders marched in the name of faith. To the east, China, the Jin and the Sing dynasties, shimmered in silk and stone, their wealth irresistible and their arrogance legendary. Between these worlds, the Mongols were little more than whispers, untamed, forgotten, dismissed as barbarians riding nowhere. But the steppe had its own rhythm, its own fire. And within that fire, Temujin began to forge something new, not just a kingdom, but an idea. He would bind the tribes with law instead of fear, with loyalty instead of blood. He would give them a single voice, a single destiny. He would call it the Great Yasa, the law of the eternal sky. Every empire begins as a rebellion. Every rebellion begins as a belief. And for Temujin, belief meant that a man could rise from nothing, a hunted child, an orphan of the plains, and command not only armies, but the will of heaven itself. Far beyond his horizon, kings ruled from marble palaces, but Temujin's throne was the saddle. His cathedral, the open sky. His crown, the faith of men who chose to follow him into the unknown. Soon, the world would learn a truth it had long forgotten, that greatness is not born in cities of stone, but in hearts that refuse to yield. The winds of destiny often begin as whispers. For Temujin, those whispers rose from betrayal. When he was still a young chieftain, the clans that once drank his father's milk turned against him. They took his wife, Bert, in a raid. They left him beaten, bound, and humiliated in his own homeland. But from that humiliation came resolve. He escaped captivity with the help of a single loyal family, proof that even in the steppe, kindness could outweigh fear. In the darkness of exile, as wolves howled and stars drifted overhead, Temujin made a vow: the tribes will no longer live as prey. The sky will unite beneath one law, and I will be its messenger. The years that Philo tested every bone in his body. He gathered followers knit through wealth, but through trust. Men from rival clans, hunters, outcasts, orphans, came to him because he promised something greater than loot order. He punished theft, rewarded courage, and taught warriors to fight not for vengeance, but for vision. The steppe began to change. Where once chaos reigned, discipline took root. His camp became a sanctuary for the broken and the betrayed. And with each new dawn, the horizon echoed with the sound of hooves, warriors coming to swear loyalty not to a tribe, but to a man whose will mirrored that of heaven. Yet shadows gathered. His blood brother, Jamukha, who had once shared his childhood dreams and sworn eternal brotherhood, saw Temujin's rise as a challenge to the old ways. Friendship turned to rivalry, then to hatred. The steppe would soon burn with the fire of their conflict: two brothers, two visions, one destiny. Jamukha fought for tradition, for the ancient order where power flowed through lineage and pride. Temujin fought for the future, a world shaped by merit, not birth. Theirs was not just a war of swords, but of ideas. One night, beneath the pale light of a crescent moon, Temujin stood before his followers. The air was still, heavy with the scent of iron and dust. "The eternal sky watches," he said. "If Tengri wills it, we shall not fear the storm, because we are the storm." When dawn broke, they rode. Their arrows darkened the sun. Across the plains, Jamukha's banners rose like a black tide. The clash that followed was not merely battle, it was the reckoning of the steppe itself. The earth trembled beneath thousands of hooves. Drums thundered. The wind carried screams and prayers alike. Temujin's warriors moved like a single heartbeat, disciplined, deliberate, unstoppable. Jamukha's men fought like fire, wild, glorious, doomed. By nightfall, the grass was red. The brotherhood was broken. Jamukha fled into the mountains, his name carried away by the wind. And Temujin, standing amid the smoke and silence, understood the price of destiny. To unite a world, he would first have to destroy it. From that day, men no longer called him simply Temujin. They called him Khan ruler. But titles mean nothing without belief. He needed not just soldiers, but a nation. He gathered the shattered tribes and spoke of unity, of justice under the eternal sky. His words were not poetry, they were law. The great Yasa was born: no theft, no betrayal, protection for the weak, reward for the brave. Even a slave could rise to lead if his heart was pure. For the first time, the steppe had a pulse, a rhythm that beat with a single purpose. And from that pulse came thunder. Beyond the mountains, China's golden cities glittered under the sun. To the west, Persia and Khwarizm dreamed of empire. None yet understood that a storm was building in the north, born of silence, sharpened by suffering, and guided by heaven's hand, a storm named Genghis Khan. The dawn of conquest began not with fanfare, but with silence. A stillness so heavy that even the horses felt it. Across the frozen grasslands, frost clung to the manes of thousands of steeds. Warriors wrapped in fur and leather stood in ranks as far as the eye could see. The wind that swept across the steppe carried a single name, whispered, then shouted, then roared: Genghis Khan. Under the eternal sky, he had united a people long divided by blood. Now, he would test the strength of that unity against the empires of men. His first war was not of ambition, but of survival. The Jin dynasty to the south had micked the steppe for centuries, calling its riders digs of the north. They believed walls could protect them from the wind. But the wind was coming. From the shadow of the Khingan Mountains, the Mongol army moved like a living creature, each heartbeat timed by drums, each breath in rhythm with the hooves of 100,000 horses. Genghis Khan rode at the front, eyes fixed in the horizon, his armor glinting with morning light. The sky is one, he told his generals, and so must the world beneath it be. When the Mongols struck, they did not strike once. They struck everywhere. Messengers galloped ahead to spread confusion. Scouts vanished into the mist, reappearing behind enemy lines. The Jin armies, vast but slow, found themselves fighting shadows. And when the real attack came, it was like the breaking of a storm. At the river's edge, the Jin troops believed they had cornered the invaders. But the river froze under the night wind, turning to glass beneath the hooves of the Mongol cavalry. As dawn broke, the Jin soldiers saw what they thought were snowdrifts moving toward them, until they heard the thunder. Horses, thousands of them. The ice cracked, the arrows sang, and the disciplined case of the Mongol charge swept them into eternity. From city to city, fortress to fortress, the pattern repeated. Walls that had stood for centuries crumbled under fire and fear. Entire kingdoms surrendered knit to the sword, but to the message it carried: submit and live. Resist and vanish. But conquest was never enough. For Genghis Khan, war was knit cruelty, it was clarity. He saw beyond victory, he saw order rising from the ashes of case. He spared artisans and engineers, built networks of trade, and opened routes that would one day connect Asia and Europe, the veins of a new world pulsing under one sky. Yet even as his empire grew, the ghosts of his past followed him. Jamukha, once his brother, now his prisoner, was brought before him in chains. The years had coved sorrow into both their faces. You were the fire, Genghis said softly, and I was the wind. Together we could have burned the world clean. Jamukha smiled, weary, proud. And yet the wind must always outlast the flame. Genghis offered mercy, but Jamukha refused. Let my death remind you, he said, that unity built in fear will never endure. The execution was swift. For days after, the Khan spoke to no one. Even heaven, it seemed, had turned away in silence. The following years saw empires fall like leaves. The Khwarezmian Shah insulted the Khan's envoys, killing them and sending their heads back in mockery. In response, the Mongol horde moved west, not as an army, but as a judgment. From the deserts of Central Asia to the gates of Persia, they swept forward like a tide of steel on flame. Cities that defied them became dust. The city of Nishipoa fell, its walls crumbling under catapults on fury. The Khan's banners rose over burning skylines, not in triumph, but in inevitability. Those who survived whispered that the eternal sky itself rode with them, lightning flashing behind their lines, thunder rolling over the plains. To the faithful, it was Tengri's approval. To their enemies, it was apocalypse. And yet, within the storm, there was method. The Khan spared scholars, physicians, and priests. He demanded translators and astronomers, believing that knowledge, like loyalty, must be conquered, not destroyed. Under his rule, the Silk Road flowed again, a river of trade and ideas connecting worlds that had never before touched. He wrote no poetry, yet his empire became a poem written across continents. He built no temples, yet every horizon bore his mark. Still, power comes with solitude. In nights when the campfires flickered low, the Khan would look toward the stars and whisper to the wind. Tengri, he would ask, was this your will? That peace should be born only through pain. The sky never answered, but the silence itself seemed divine. In 1227, in the edge of the world he had remade, Genghis Khan fell ill. His generals gathered around him, the faces lit by the glow of the dying fire. He told them, the world is temporary, the sky is eternal. I was born of the sky, unto the sky I return. Outside his tent, the wind rose once more, carrying dust and prayers into the dark. When it settled, the man was gone. Only the legend remained. From the Pacific to the Black Sea, people would speak his name in fear, in awe, in reverence. But for those who knew him, the men who had ridden with him, who had watched him weep, who had seen him bury his dead, he was not just a conqueror. He was the living breath of the steppe. A reminder that empires crumble, but the wind never dies. Long after his death, the wind of the steppe still whispered his name. Genghis Khan, the man who had no kingdom, yet built the greatest empire the world had ever seen. The man who was born in dust and ruled through silence. His sons would carry his banner across deserts and mountains, spreading his dream from Korea to Kiev, from the Persian sands to the frozen Volga. The empire he forged out of case became a bridge, a highway of ideas, trade, and faiths. Through his conquests, silk met steel, east met west, and the world grew smaller beneath the eternal sky. Historians still argue whether he was a tyrant or a visionary. But perhaps both can be true. For Genghis Khan understood something few ever have, that order is not born from peace, but from struggle. That unity often demands sacrifice. He believed the sky had chosen him not to destroy, but to connect. Not to end civilizations, but to force them to look beyond their walls. And so, from the bones of war, he built a kind of order that would outlive him, the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol peace, where caravans could cross continents under a single law and a single name. Centuries later, the dust of his empire has settled. But his question remains, echoing through history: can humanity ever be united without conquest? Or are we all, like him, forever bound to fight the case within ourselves before we can master the world beyond? Beneath the same sky that watched him rise and fall, the wind still carries his answer. A whisper, fading yet eternal. The sky is one, so must we be. History remembers him as a conqueror, but beneath the armor, beneath the storm, was a man who believed that destiny could be shaped, not by blood, but by will. His empire may have vanished into dust, yet his vision still breathes in every dream of unity, every fight against case. If you believe that courage and destiny still echo across time, join us. Subscribe, and journey with us into the forgotten corners of history, where wind, fire, and faith forged the world we know today. Because every legend begins the same way, with wind voice daring to rise against the sky.